Hi, it's Dave here and I'm with my wife Cathy.
Hello.
And we're with our son Oscar. Great, just like we practiced. We're out for a walk. We just did a Twitter poll asking what you want us to review next, based on our completely random selection of movies that we saw on the TV tonight.
Well, they were all available to rent, and they were all around 90 minutes, and they were movies we both wanted to see. So that was the criteria. So we had Lady Bird, we had Tully, which I'm dying to see, and we had Ghost Stories. And thanks, guys, for not voting for Tully. We got Lady Bird, which
Did
I'm
you not
also...
want to see Tully?
I really wanted to see Tully, so I was hoping that would win.
We were being sarcastic.
Yeah.
You're sort of sarcasticizing.
I was doing like a 90s humour on it.
Right, okay.
Thanks for voting for Lady Bird. Not.
We're really happy with how you voted, everyone.
Yeah, but actually I'm really excited. I really want to
see
see Lady Bird, yeah. It's been one of those ones that has been on my list. I was dying to see. It barely got any showings locally in cinemas, and I just missed it. So it was one of those things. Obviously, massive Saoirse Ronan fan, not just because she's Irish, because she's just a fantastic actress. And Greta Gerwig,
My God, she's the new Meryl.
She's the new Meryl.
If I see somebody else describe her as the new Meryl.
It's so stupid. It's like, yeah, they're both blonde and good actresses, that's it. Greta Gerwig, I haven't ever seen anything she's directed. I think this might be the first.
I think
or
it's
second.
the first.
Yeah, first.
Oh, maybe second.
She's directing pretty...
Research!
She's directing Little Women, though, upcoming, which should be cool. But I haven't seen anything she's directed, albeit I really like her as an actress. And I'm just excited about this. I mean, I have a lot of expectations because I got so much praise. So I maybe should temper my expectations a little bit. I know it's based on Greta Gerwig's youth, and it's the same time we were teenagers, like early noughties, so that should be appealing to us.
Yeah, I'm excited about this as well. I feel like we're really hot on the finger of the pulse of this movie. I mean, when was this being talked about? In January?
And
February?
we are very aware the premise of our podcast is the cinema. We just could not get to the cinema this week.
Look,
and
we tried,
missed a podcast last week, and we don't want to miss podcasts because we love our podcast. So this is the way we're doing it. And hopefully we'll get to the cinema next time.
So we're out for a walk now. We're heading home in a minute. We're going to go watch that movie. Then we're going to talk to you later.
Yeah, okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Lady Bird, is that your given name?
Yeah.
Why is it in quotes?
I gave it to myself. It's given to me by me.
Lady Bird always says that she lives on the wrong side of the tracks, but I always thought that was like a metaphor. But there are actual train tracks.
What she did was very baller. It was very anarchist.
Put the magazine back!
She has a big heart, your mom.
She's warm, but she's also kind of scary.
You can't be scary and warm.
I think you can. Your mom is.
So, you're not interested in any Catholic colleges?
No way. I want schools like Yale, but not Yale because I probably couldn't get in.
You definitely couldn't get in.
All right, so a little bit of time has passed since we last spoke. We did watch Lady Bird last night.
Yes, it's now the next day. We wanted to do our walk and talk review, but I think it's illegal to leave a baby at home alone while you walk and review movies together.
Yeah. Oscar didn't seem to mind.
He didn't. He wouldn't have minded, but we would never do such a thing.
All right, but here we are. We're all here now again. Lady Bird. We saw that.
Yeah, and we had quite different opinions on it, didn't we?
Yeah, you really didn't like it.
We'll talk a little bit,
didn't.
and then we go to spoiler street. Okay, so kind of the context of me watching this movie is, well, I knew it had Oscar nominations, but I looked it up before we started it, and it has 5 Oscar nominations, right? Now, I know we've debated a lot the merit of Oscars on this, but that's a lot. It was Best Director, Best Writer, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, and I can't remember the other one. I mean, that's a lot, right?
Did it win any?
No, it didn't win anything. And it's 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. So add those two things with the fact that I love watching movies written and directed by women, and I absolutely love teen movies, like coming of age movies for me, alongside rom-coms when they're done right, are the best movies of all, because like one of the things with that, like they generally take place in like a character's life when they're kind of at the precipice of this fundamental change and they're looking forward and they want to grow up, but we as an audience are looking at them and we're filled with nostalgia, and it's just, when it's captured right, it's a really beautiful moment. I don't think that this movie did that. To me, it's like this is a very basic, but in a movie I expect, if I'm to be engaged in a movie, I expect extraordinary characters in a mundane situation, or I'll expect ordinary characters.
Mundane characters in an extraordinary situation.
Exactly, yeah. But to me, this movie was a mundane character in a mundane situation.
But that's why it's so good.
But without any flair. I would say without any flair in either the script or the direction for me to elevate it beyond what was just almost just at like a year in the life of a normal little teenage girl.
Yeah, which is why it was so good and authentic and interesting
cinematic?
to watch. Aren't you sick of watching mundane characters transported to an extraordinary situation, or vice versa, or however you described it? That's just every movie, every ridiculous, over-the-top situation that we're used to seeing.
Because extraordinary can just be, that thing of like, a basic movie plot is like, a stranger comes to town, how do we deal with it? Or you leave your town, how do you deal with that? This movie there was no impetus to this movie. It's just, it's her last year of school and here it is, and she doesn't really know who she is, so we never really get a sense of who she is. Like, I was never gunning for her. I never disliked her. I never liked her. I just, at one point, I said, like, we paused it, and I was like, oh my god, there's 16 minutes left. I don't know if I can bear another 16 minutes of this because it's so boring. And that's a terrible thing to think about a 90-minute movie. And interestingly, after we watched it, I googled it, and it said that it was voted in a BBC study as to be the most critically overrated movie of last year, in that it had the widest gap between critic appreciation and audience appreciation. Can you guess what the opposite was? The most underrated.
Of last year or this year?
Last year.
What, 2017?
The Greatest Showman. The gap between what critics said and what it... And I have to say, having watched it...
No, The Last Jedi, surely.
No, it wasn't. It was The Greatest Showman. And having watched it and not giving it a great review and subsequently got addicted to the music, it's funny, I've kind of swung around. But anyway, so that's kind of my basic thoughts on it, and obviously we'll speak more in Spoiler Street, but I mean, I was really disappointed. Like, there's such a dearth of coming-of-age movies. Like, this year I've only seen 2 new ones. So I saw Love, Simon, which I thought was a really great movie. And then...
don't say that awful
All
Netflix
the Boys I've
one.
Loved Before, which was the Netflix one. Which
that was a terrible movie.
It wasn't great. But there's a reason there was such a reaction to it, and there's a lack of these movies in the first place, right?
Yeah, but that movie is an exact example of what I was just saying I'm glad this movie wasn't, which is a movie. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they're not really comparable. That was just an adaptation of a book that had a bit of a gimmick.
Yeah, but that felt like, it's very structured. It had flair, I would argue. The flair was off-putting and not well realised in terms of that, and it just felt contrived.
Well, and not to get into a review of that, but I felt like at least that was an original, interesting central character to me.
But no,
I
didn't like her
anyway,
at all. I didn't like her. I'm going to continue reviewing that movie.
Yeah, but when have we ever seen a young half-Korean protagonist very much of that culture based in America before? How many million times have we seen like normal, like good-looking white teenage girl having angst about losing her virginity? Million times.
Okay, hang on. First of all, I admire it for that. I admire it that it had...
we're still talking about
it
all
had
the boys
diversity
front
and centre and didn't make an issue out of it. Yeah. I liked that, and fine, but that does not a good movie make. And that's really got nothing to do with anything.
I didn't say it was a good movie.
That's
well,
just
you're
texture.
the one who started talking. I'm just saying at least that movie had a character I hadn't seen before. This movie didn't.
Anyway, basically, I completely disagree with everything you've said. And I think maybe it's if you dig around a bit, it's just a little bit of this is the way you and me, what you and me like in a movie, and the way we read as well. You read a book at probably 400 miles an hour. I've seen you read books in 4 hours, like 600 pages in 4 hours. Like, it's insane how you consume media, and it's all swift and it's about plot. And that's what excites you, and you don't linger on the detail. We've read...
Okay, that's a really dismissive thing to say. Like, I absolutely admire detail in both books and movies. You just think in this movie that there was detail I didn't admire.
I think this movie is all description and no plot.
Oh, yeah, 100% no plot.
And so that's that's exactly the kind of book you hate.
Well, no, because then I want them to revel in the details, right? It's set in the early noughties. It's actually set in the exact year we would have both finished high school, right? It's like 2003. Like, it's exactly it's exactly our age. And for me, I was so excited about the music, like how they were going to set it. 2 songs stood out for me. There's a moment which is fun with her and her dad in the car where A Hand in My Pocket's on by Alanis Morissette. And then there's one moment where Dave Matthews Band plays. That's it.
Yes,
if you're setting a movie in the early noughties, right, with no plot, are you not going to at least ground it in the music?
No, I disagree with you again, because if you start shoehorning all that stuff in, then it becomes...
shoehorning, it's of the time.
Hang on. No. Let me finish my point. That's suddenly a nostalgia piece, and again, it feels to me like a movie. I think to the movie's credit, it was much better that it didn't being like, oh, remember the...
we have to turn around. Oscar's just taking
Did
a
you
sock
take
off
a sock
and
off?
throwing it on the footpath.
Oh, remember the iMac? Look at cell phones. Remember these songs? It didn't do any of that. Like you said, we only got
No, but I think
2,
the songs are
3
the
moments.
tapestry of it. And she didn't
there
bother
was
using them.
just the right amount of it, because it's not like it's like when you do a period piece and suddenly it's everything that everybody remembers about that period, but that's not what it's like to live in it, really. It's just mundane, normal life. Nobody really looked particularly 2000s except a couple of characters.
Yeah. But
So-
when you were a teenager, did you not listen to loads of music and define yourself by it?
But I did, and so does she, and you have those moments. But it's not like every scene has to be set to Dave Matthews or Alanis Morissette or whatever
think so.
it is.
I'm just saying that if you're talking about there being no plot, which there wasn't, then I'm expecting a rich world. And I guess I didn't get. So anyway, look, say what you think you liked about it, because we said we were going to keep this review brief, and already we're rambling on.
Okay, I will say I really liked this movie. I didn't love it. So first of all, I really do disagree with everything you say, and I'm coming at this from a very different point, because I thought it was just great. I thought it was lovely. I thought there's a real authenticity to Greta, to the experiences that we see on scene with Lady Bird, and you really feel that that's all coming from Greta Gerwig's writing, because it felt very personal. It felt like a lot of this was either stuff that happened to her or to someone she knows, or felt very close to being something that's an actual teenage girl's experience.
Well, it's autobiographical. Like, she's from Sacramento. She went to a Catholic school. Like, she said it's autobiographical.
But
that does not make it interesting, though.
But it really did to me. It really came across, because that's when cinema for me is at its best, when I'm firstly when it's an escape, and I escaped into this world, and I'll agree with you, it's not a very interesting world, but for 90 minutes I was totally bought into this person and her life and her experience for 1 year, and I got a real taste of that, and she felt like a real person. Never did I feel like it was Saoirse Ronan performing somebody who'd
Saoirse
written...
Ronan is an incredible actress. She's amazing.
Like, we don't even need to go on about her.
Of course she's amazing. We're not, like, at no point in this movie did I think she was anything less than fabulous, and I 100% think she deserves all the credit she gets for it. But she's amazing in everything, so it's almost like the Meryl thing. You're like, and next, what else about her? And obviously, the other thing I really liked, and I meant to say, was that I love the relationship between her and her mother. Like, I thought that was genuinely interesting, because that's, how mothers and daughters interact. Like, you're fighting 1 minute, like 1 minute they're having a fight, next minute they're cooing over a dress. Like, that was just a really cute scene, and I liked the tension in their relationship. I bought it. But again, was it enough to sustain a movie? No, but
that's my point. Okay, so what I was saying was Saoirse Ronan was Lady Bird for me. Like, that was just a real person who I got to spend a little bit of time with, and the same with all of the supporting characters. Her mother, her father, her friend, they all just felt like real people. It felt like voyeurism, that we got to watch this little snapshot of somebody's life, and I related to a lot of it.
What about the brother? We mutually thought he was bad.
I think, yeah, all right. The brother was underwritten. He was really just a punchline.
Yeah.
And the little bit of sort of plot they gave him, which we'll talk about in a bit, didn't really land. And he was an okay actor, but when you're working against everyone who was around him, he kind of stood out a little bit as a sore thumb. Like, he anytime he appeared, he took me out of it a little bit. But this is my point. There's no like presentation of the character. It didn't feel like Greta Gerwig was like, here's the character, here's all the things I need to get across about a character, and then you get this perfect impression of them. Rather, it's the cliche of the iceberg, and you only get the surface bit which hints at everything underneath. That's all. You only ever get a few scenes with some of these characters. Like the mother, I would say, is only in maybe 3 or 4 scenes. Same with the father.
The parents are fantastic.
I think the parents were brilliant.
Were very well written and very well acted.
You get a lovely moment. You get all these little throwaway details. I'll say 2 things which aren't spoilers, but one with the father and something that Lady Bird discovers in the bathroom about him, which lends so much to him and just fills in years and years of backstory in your head. There's another moment with the mother and some letters, which I think tells you so much about her as a person and gives you a lot of detail that just contextualizes a lot of their lives and deepens the relationship. And all that's done without any real dialogue really or incident or plots.
I think maybe my main issue is like with the character of Lady Bird herself. Like, she doesn't know who she is. Nothing she does is particularly insightful or interesting.
But that's the teenage experience.
Yeah, but have you ever seen the movie 13?
Yes.
So 13's like,
that's very good.
Phenomenal movie, right? Yeah. And that's directed by a woman as well, Catherine Hardwicke, and that's like an explosion on the screen of, this is, similar situation, like teenage girl with her mom doesn't have a lot of money, but you're fascinated by the story, because for me, I was truly shocked when I watched it. Like, that is a genuine teenage experience that I didn't have. Watching Lady Bird, it's like, yeah, she's literally just a middle of the road, uninteresting teenager who tries to make herself a bit cool by giving herself a nickname. That kind of resolves itself in the end. And yeah, I wasn't interested in her enough to follow her for 90 minutes. And that's me speaking as someone who loves Saoirse Ronan. Like, I
completely agree with you, and it's an interesting point with those 2 movies, because I personally think they're both very good, but for different reasons. And you hit the nail on the head. 13 is about a very remarkable and very dramatic and intense character and situation. And there are people who have experiences like that. Certainly, that's not far-fetched.
And you don't see that on screen often.
No, you don't. But that's a very, and that is fascinating and interesting. But with Lady Bird's not that. Lady Bird is just the story of a very unremarkable, normal teenager that really most of us can relate to. And I just found that quite interesting. And I agree the movie is slight. There's not a lot of substance to it. But it's punchy and pacey because the way it's all edited together is little scenes and moments, and sometimes months flash by in like
the editing
tidbits.
Confused me because like we said, time was flashing by, but then sometimes
it was just one night
back to back, and I was confused. Like, am I watching a month? Am I watching a day? Like, and I enjoyed the casting in that, like, she has 2 boyfriend characters in it, and they're actually just both like not particularly attractive teenage boys, and that's the reality of life, right? Like, when you look back at your teenage photos, everyone's like, oh my god, that's so embarrassing. When we watched Letters to the Boys I've Loved,
normal in this.
The guy who's the love interest in that Netflix movie is so attractive. The internet went completely ballistic about him. At one point, Netflix changed their Twitter bio to say they were just a fan account for him. Like, he was outrageous. The guys in this movie are the pimply, unattractive, try hard, wannabe cool guys that you would have actually dated in high school. And that's fun.
That's why I think these 2 movies are quite interesting comparison points, because this is much closer to reality and that's much closer to Disney. And there's nothing wrong with people who've enjoyed that Netflix movie, All the Boys that I've whatever. And seriously, loads of people are loving it, and we've had a lot of people recommend it to us, and good for you, but I personally wasn't for me, and that's the complete antithesis to this, and that's what I enjoy about it, because I'm kind of just sick of mainstream cinema in a way. It's just so predictable and boring, and that's why maybe I found this really refreshing.
But the thing is, to me, this is mainstream. This is like an all-white cast. It's set in a high school. It's a straight white girl,
but that's
dating guys. Like what I'm saying, that's like any teen movie ever, but without the fun hooks of things like The Breakfast Club.
But we're going
10 Things
around-
I Hate About
hang
You.
on.
Clueless. It's just all of them but less. And I know we're going around in circles
We're
now.
going around in circles.
It's
I
all
was
of
just
them
gonna
but
say
less.
that.
And it's not even really tackling poverty, which really annoyed me. So can we speak about the poverty, right? First of all, I think we should get to spoiler street if we're going to speak on the poverty.
Okay, sure. Well, spoilers
So,
now for
spoilers
the movie
now
Lady
for the
Bird.
movie Lady Bird. Dave liked it more than me. It's partly overrated by critics, which I would agree with. So central to the movie and like referenced in almost every scene is her so-called poverty, right? Now, first of all, her house is bigger than our house. We need to say that. She lives in what is like a decent sized 2-bed house. We hear her parents have owned it for 25 years, which implies to me no mortgage. At the start of the movie, her mom, her dad, and her brother all have jobs. And she's going to a private school, okay? So, for me, that is not a representation of poverty. That's a representation of a lower middle class income family struggling to make ends meet like most of us do.
But hang on, that's what it is. This movie never
The movie
purports
posits her
to
as
be.
if to be like on the breadline.
No, it
the
doesn't.
mom's like, I'm just off a double shift. You've no idea. I can't afford to buy you a magazine. Back and forth, back and forth. Lady Bird's so embarrassed by where she lives that she lies about her address to people. Like, she's
Hang
so
on.
shallow.
I disagree. What you just described. The second half of that was what the movie was presenting: a lower middle class family who are struggling and need to plan for the future, and that's why there's moments of the mother and father sitting down trying to get the numbers to work,
But
and
it
he's
makes
depressed.
sense if you're struggling financially like that. In a house you've lived in for 25 years, you're not sending your daughter to a private school. Like, it's stupid.
Yeah, but
That's not
no.
stupid.
But this happened. That he lost his job in her last year, so they're not going to pay any more fees soon. What are they going to do? Pull her out in the middle of it?
Just
And
annoyed
the
me. I
movie-
don't know why she was what she was trying to do. And then ultimately, Lady Bird, who's really vacuous and selfish, like, we do establish that.
Yes, because she's a
obsessed
teenager.
with going to the East Coast, right, to live in New York. She doesn't have anything in particular she wants to study. She doesn't care what college she goes to. She just wants to go to New York. And in the end, she gets accepted into a college in New York. We don't even know what it is or what she's studying. And her parents remortgage their house for this. Now, in all honesty, if Oscar in 18 years' time told me that he wanted to move to New York and didn't care what he studied, I'd be like, great, go on, get a job as a waiter, live in New York, live your life. I wouldn't be remortgaging my house to send him there when he has no interest in any particular subject. So to me, again, it's like, well, they're not actually really that poor because they're bankrolling this ridiculous trip to New York.
But the movie never said they were poor.
But that's what every second scene in the movie was about.
No, but that's because she was going to school with crazy rich people
They
and
only shop in
walking
thrift
home.
stores. They're on the breadline. They can't afford things in the
Yeah, but
mom's
they
constantly on
nobody's-
about movies.
Nobody
money.
says the word poverty at any stage. Nobody does. It is the movie is what it presents about this family. They're lower middle income earners with one salary, now two with the son, who are just getting by fine. But they're on the lower end of the.
But what was the
of the
point of the
spectrum.
movie? Why is she constantly addressing the money? Like,
There's
I didn't get it.
There's no point to the movie, love. It's just like this. It's just a selection of experiences in one life of a character who felt like a very real person. And you said it yourself. It's unremarkable.
It's
But that's
unremarkable,
what's
but
interesting.
annoying because it doesn't. It's touching on things like she's essentially like, at one point her mom says, I want you to be the best person you can be, and she says, what if this is the best I can be? Which I would argue it probably is, because ultimately she's neither particularly smart nor particularly dumb, particularly interesting nor particularly uninteresting. She's like, you know, good looking but not
that's
like
most
a
of
supermodel.
us.
But that's what I'm saying, like, that's all fine. Like, she's pretty mundane, and ultimately she goes to college and has this experience where, like, we all probably had, and like basically the first week there gets absolutely pissed, embarrasses herself, realizes she's homesick, and that's the end of the movie. It's like, oh wow, she realizes she's a little bit homesick and she reverts to her given name, Christine.
Okay.
Like, that's just such a crap character arc. Like,
Yeah.
every part of it at the end I just thought, oh my god, is that all we watched it for? Like, at one point I thought something was really going to happen with the parents' financial situation, or she was going to have a really interesting character change, or just any of it, and in the end it was just nothing. Like, it's such a lame construct that she calls herself Lady Bird at the start and she calls herself Christine at the end. It's just,
Look, I know.
like,
Look, it's difficult.
a neat little bow. Like, I can't believe it was not, like, the script rating was nominated. Like,
But look, love, it's difficult to it is difficult to wrap up a movie and a third act when you've kind of thrown out plot and structure, and that doesn't matter.
And then when you try and do it just doesn't work because it feels
I'll agree with you
insincere.
there. It doesn't feel... No, I think insincere is the wrong word. I think this movie feels very consistent throughout, and I think that ending was largely consistent with where we started and where we ended. But the character's arc, as you said, is slight. There's nothing much to it. She only grew up a year. She's had in that year she's had some experiences which have taught her some things that
She's ended up in a state where her parents have remortgaged their house for her to go on the piss in New York, and I just find that so objectionable. A, so stupid that the parents would do that, and I just don't. And B, that she is accepting of that money and in fact a brat until she gets it.
But look, you're
describing.
you're frustrated by the actions of the characters. Do you think those actions felt inauthentic to the way they were presented? I don't
know.
think so.
I feel like first of all, we're playing way too much analysis to this movie that was released last year and no one cares about. Albeit they did vote for it in our Twitter poll.
Yeah, but you
I'm
wanted
just so
you wanted this,
disappointed.
everyone.
I was expecting a lot from this movie, and actually I tend to enjoy even middle of the road teen movies like that. You know,
Okay,
the Netflix one, I enjoyed it. At least I think the Netflix one will be memorable because people loved it. It had a love interest that everyone was obsessed with him, and it had a genuinely unique central character. This movie, I just think in 5 years no one's going to be talking about it.
Yeah.
It's just a complete flash in the pan. It's just probably, I'm sorry, and I am a fan of her, but I really do think that this is just a bit of an ego trip for the writer and director, like to just write an autobiographical boring movie about yourself. Like, be creative, write something interesting.
Oh, God, I cannot disagree with you anymore on this. I do agree with you that 5 years from now, all the boys, I can't remember the name of the title,
too long.
will be the one that's talked about and remembered and rewatched. You know, it's a huge
no
hit.
one loves this movie.
Yeah, no one loves. I can't say anyone. I don't love this movie.
Yeah.
No one.
Like,
does
it's
anyone out there
Greta Gerwig's
love this movie? No, I don't think so. But it's a good piece of work. It's actually.
It's fine. It feels to me like a young director learning their craft, and it's just a shame that Greta Gerwig was quite famous when she made it, and she had Saoirse Ronan, and it ended up being bigger than it should have been. Like, it's the kind of movie if I'd probably caught it at 11 p.m. some night on some movie channel and probably just watched it with zero expectations, might have thought, oh, that was nice.
That's Cathy, that's your problem, and you need to check your context at the door, because you had the same problem with Shape of Water, where you allow the hype to seep into
but I can't help
the way you see a movie. Because
I live in the world and I see these things.
I know, but don't the Oscar train or whatever they call it is just nonsense.
Well,
it's
if it's nonsense, then people shouldn't submit themselves for it if they're above it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
the people who made this movie wanted to be in the Oscar race. They put themselves out there.
Of course they did, because it's all just a machine. It's a money making machine. You get your movie goes in, you get loads of hype. Suddenly it's released. It's in cinemas at the same time. The studio makes more money. They call it a sleeper hit. Loads of people get awards. It keeps going, blah blah blah. But that doesn't mean that this is suddenly you go in and this probably happened to other people. You turn on this movie,
well, it
5
happened.
Oscar nominations.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is going to blow me away. It's like, well, what
probably
does
why
that
the
mean?
audience score has been low.
But what does an Oscar nomination mean? What does Best Picture, Best Director,
I know. Look, we've had
Best
this conversation
writer,
a lot. Our Shape of Water is all about
but
the
like,
Oscars.
what's best? What it's apples and pears.
To me, I expect a very, very, very well written movie if it's been directed for best screenplay. Think if this was up against The Big Sick. Are they comparable in writing?
No, but hang on. What you're saying is that you found the story of The Big Sick and the movie itself more engaging and more enjoyable on a personal level. Yeah, but how is that writing in that better than the writing in this? Because
that's a compelling movie that has a genuine something to say about the world. It's funny. It has really well drawn characters.
Okay, but you're back to the movie itself. That's the difference. You're saying, you can say, for me, that's a better movie. That screenplay was better. I enjoyed it more. But if that's the whole problem with awards. If you're saying you're the best writer, that was the best screenplay, how do you describe and the merits of the art of screenwriting and award someone's the best? Because Yeah, this movie was probably, you could just easily describe it as dull, unremarkable.
I would describe it as both of those things.
But the characters here felt very, very real and situational. And I'm not directly comparing it to The Big Sick, because I also thought it was an excellent screenplay. But the point is, I could not flaw the writing in this. I thought it's out of the park. It's just superb. Like, very, very rarely did I question any of these people or their motivations.
I questioned their motivations constantly, because I thought, look, 1 minute she's has one life, the next minute she's completely changed tack, has different friends, and we never ever, I never understood why she did it. I get that teenage girls ditch their friends all the time, but I didn't understand why this particular character was doing this particular thing. It was not clear to me. One scene she's had this BFF for life, next scene she doesn't, and that was like just
teenagers, right? She's in the amount of, they're flippant, they're so intensely passionate, and they change their minds.
It's the filmmaker's job to make me believe why someone is doing something.
No.
And I think coming of age movies are such an opportunity to be iconic, like so many iconic movies. Like if you think of Amy Heckerling, right, she's amazing. So she did Fast Times at Ridgemont High, she did Clueless, which I know I always bang on about, but they're memorable movies that like I love, and I will always hold them in my heart. And that's what a really good coming age movie should be. It's like just captures this moment in time. This didn't capture any moment in time. There's no before and after this movie. Lady Bird's just the same character, albeit she's like lives in New York now and has her own name.
But you're ascribing motivations to Greta Gerwig's intentions, that she wanted to make something iconic and remarkable and memorable. I feel like, and I don't know, look, she's not here, I don't know her motivations.
To basically write an autobiographical movie this dull is just an ego trip.
No, that's so unfair to say. That's like, clearly she wanted to bring to life a character, this is how I see it, who's
based on her.
A teenager that is based on her own experiences. And look, of course there's a little bit of egotism in anything that's autobiographical, but that's what just made it all feel real. And there's so much lovely detail in here. I think it's to the movie's strength that Lady Bird is flippant and keeps changing her mind on things. Another detail which I loved was the sort of vacuous boyfriend from the band who's like,
yeah, he was good.
He's like so many teenage boys. I was like this, where you're like, nah man, you can't have cell phones because the government's going to track you, and I'm so real and edgy and authentic. And then like 2 scenes later, just incidentally, he's on a cell phone.
I did enjoy him. He was
good. But like they don't make
good.
big deals out of this stuff. It's just all. And like how everything is so intense, they really captured like teenage romance perfectly. Her and her first boyfriend lying looking up at the stars thinking, this is the greatest moment of my life, I love you so much. Like everything is so, when you're a teenager, everything is 190%, and you've never felt more alive.
Then that moment was just over. I did enjoy, I have to say,
but that's your teenage years. It is just over, and you realise looking back,
I'm a
nothing.
film viewer. To me, I don't want the scene just to be over. I want to be in the scene, and I really do say, like, honestly, I really enjoyed her portrayal of female sexuality. I thought that was really good. But I think we've rambled on way too much. Poor Oscar, it's his dinner time. We're just wandering the streets.
There was a great line. What was it? Who? What do you mean you weren't a virgin? I was on top. Who's on top their first time?
I did. That was really funny when she loses her virginity. She's on top. And actually watching the scene, I thought, you always see loss of virginity in the missionary position, don't you? Like always, in any movie ever. So I had actually noticed that, and then she said it, which
they addressed
was really
it,
funny,
which is very good. I thought it was brilliant the way all that happened, the way all that played out. Was just felt like, yeah, that feels like someone's real experience.
Yeah.
But also, can we just quick acknowledgement to the chemistry between her and her best friend Julie, because I thought that those two were superb together.
I liked them, and they're just
really
two normal looking girls. I liked it.
But those two girls, just like in moments when they were like in her kitchen and they were just playing with cake, and it was just like, I love this. This is nothing to do with anything, and it's just, but that brought them to life for me. And I'm really I'm not disappointed you didn't like it.
I'm really disappointed. Well, I wanted to love it.
Fair enough. But I understand everything you're saying. I really do, and I can see the points you're making, and I can see why other people would feel the same. I'm just very, and this is why I don't like awards and all those things. When you say this is good, that's better, this is best. It's not. It's very difficult to compare this to anything else, because it's just a piece of work that an artist made that, for me, felt very much what she intended to make.
Yeah,
and
I think she's obviously an auteur and she's written and directed it. She's doing her own thing. I'm not buying what she's selling, and I'm speaking as someone who cannot help, because I watch a lot of these movies, cannot help comparing it to other coming of age movies and how I connect with them.
But actually,
can't
yeah,
help
okay,
it.
fine. But I think...
And you didn't see Love, Simon this year, but again, Love, Simon had this, really interesting story to tell about, it was the first ever time that in any teen movie, there was a gay protagonist and it was his love story. Like, again, that's a story that we need to hear and it's really important for people to see. No one needs to see this story. There's nothing, there's no message. You know what I mean? There's no, if you had a teenager and you could recommend 5 movies to them to see that would, change their feeling of themselves and their place in the world. This is not that movie.
I agree with you, but that's not the entire purpose of cinema. That's just one spectrum of cinema,
but that's
and it's
why
a very
you
important
elevate a genre that has already so many movies in it. You have to elevate it through. There has to be. I think there has to be a hook, and I just think this movie has no hook. And I think now we're repeating ourselves.
Well, we are repeating ourselves, but I think you're right. I think you're right. This movie doesn't really have anything to say about society, and it doesn't have anything to say about poverty or race or nothing.
There's nothing to say about anything.
There. But that's fine.
Maybe
Not every movie
maybe
does.
Maybe it's a genre thing. Maybe I am inaccurately putting it in the... Okay, let's quickly go through the really big coming of age movies, right? So Breakfast Club, premises, they're all in detention today. What happens, right? Clueless is absolute filthy rich girls and how they interact in school.
Mean Girls?
Mean Girls is Lindsay Lohan is the star and she comes from Africa to this school and she integrates herself with all these horrible bitches and it's really funny. What else? Rebel Without a Cause is obviously James Dean being completely sexy and driving around in cars. 10 Things I Hate About You is a really fun premise. She's All That is they make a bet, then blah blah blah. They all have a high concept. I think most coming of age movies that I can think of have a high concept, an elevator pitch, something that gets you in the door. And I guess if I'm comparing it within the genre, maybe actually the more I look at this, aside from the protagonist's age, it's not actually a teen / it's not in that genre. Do you know what I mean? And maybe that's my problem. I have expectations around that genre.
But it's not, yeah.
Or you've 13 and a mundane situation, but an extraordinary girl.
But what you've done, and this is the problem, and you're comparing it to other movies and trying to fit it into a genre.
Yeah.
But you just shouldn't do that with this movie.
Well, I know, it's what I'm not going to do.
And so, and I think
the more I think about it,
that might have affected your enjoyment of it, particularly.
I just kept thinking, where's it going? What's happening? What's the point? When I'm sitting through a movie and there's 16 minutes left and I'm so bored of this movie, it's a really bad sign.
Well, it's one of those movies that you just let wash over you. It's not, there's nothing to it, but it's
you
very
just said
well
there's
done.
Nothing to it. That's pretty damning.
No, it's not damning. It really isn't. I think this is. I'm just going to repeat myself again.
We're repeating ourselves. We need to go home now.
I recommend this movie. I think it's.
This was going to say.
Yeah.
Would you actually genuinely, if a friend asked you, should I watch this movie? Would you honestly say, yeah, you should watch it? Would you say there's anything you can get out of this movie to a friend or to one of our lovely listeners?
I just thought it was nice. I enjoyed spending time with these characters. It felt like this was someone's real experiences mixed with very effectively put to screen. But is it? I don't know. You're not going to have it's not It's not hugely entertaining. You're not going to be sit down, get the popcorn, 90 minutes.
Are you
going
to learn anything about the world?
But that's also not what it's for.
No, so you're neither going to be entertained nor learn anything nor be particularly engaged by it, right? So Oscar's
but
getting really
I enjoyed
bored now.
it and I thought it was really good. Isn't that enough?
Yeah, it is. So good. So I'm gonna. Next time a friend asks me to recommend a movie, you're gonna recommend Lady Bird, are you?
Come on. No, I'm not gonna.
You need to text all your bros and be like, "Hey, dudes, you should watch Lady Bird." It's
my
awesome.
bros. Who are you?
Okay, I was
right,
just
Oscar,
so sick of us talking about Lady Bird.
We're home now. We did.
Right.
We went on way longer than
too
we
long,
thought, but that's because I thought it was a really interesting discussion, and I think it's interesting to look at how we come to a movie and how our
it's like when you started crying about Star Wars.
Well, yeah,
didn't care.
But that's a whole other thing.
All right, okay, bye.
Let's leave it there. Thanks for listening. If you we don't always disagree. If you would like to listen to one where we do agree, go subscribe to us at this. We're thecinemile.com. We're on all the podcast apps. Leave us a rating if you have a minute, and you'll find us on social: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at The Cinemile. And let us know what you think of Lady Bird 9 months after anyone was talking about it.
They probably forgot. I mean, if I'd seen it 9 months ago, I wouldn't remember it.
It's not going to last.
No.
The
Now,
The
keep
next
us-
time,
We're
we
still
see,
talking,
the
Dave.
next time anyone talks about Lady Bird will be in Saoirse Ronan's like Lifetime Achievement Award Oscar reel.
Yeah, that's exactly
that's the next time it'll
exactly when.
be. All right.
All right, okay.
Until then.
Bye.
Bye.
Miss Patty assigned you a role, by the way. You just never showed up to claim it.
What role?
The Tempest.
There is no role of the Tempest.
It is the titular role.
No, it's a made-up thing, so we all can participate.
You can't do anything unless you're the center of attention, can you?
Yeah, well, you know your mom's tits, they're fake. Totally fake.
She made